uncle, Robert, spent half his life working as a taxi driver. Even now, though he's retired, he still goes out for night shifts from time to time. He genuinely loves the job, partly because it lets him meet all kinds of people. And the stories he's collected over the years, he could write a whole book. Some of them are especially strange, almost impossible to explain logically. This is one of those stories. Maybe someone listening can figure out what he actually encountered that night. He was working the night shift. Sometime after 2 a.m., he received a call. He was glad. Nights like that are usually quiet. Probably another drunk, I'll have to drive home, he thought. He pulled up to the address, a 9-story apartment building downtown, and noticed someone pacing back and forth near the entrance. Before Robert could even stop the car, the man jumped inside. Turned out, that was his passenger. He sat in the front seat, next to the driver, which was unusual. Most people sit in the back. Right away, Robert noticed how nervous the man was. His hands were shaking, sweat glistened on his forehead. He repeated the destination in a rush, even though it was already clearly listed in the app, and added, "Please hurry, I'm in a big rush." He must be on something, Robert thought at first. But no, maybe not. Hard to tell. He didn't look like a typical night passenger at all. A wrinkled raincoat, thin glasses, a bald head shining with sweat, like he'd been running. He looked more like a bank clerk who stayed late at work. Well, a ride is a ride. Robert started pulling out of the courtyard when something strange caught his attention. A pedestrian was crossing the street, dressed in a dark cloak with a hood, holding something like a cane. He walked slowly, confidently, like the place belonged to him, and Robert was driving through his territory. The stranger crossed the street and headed straight toward their car. The passenger hadn't noticed him at first. He was looking the other way. Then he turned his head, saw him, and suddenly screamed, "Step on it, go now, don't stop, faster." Robert later said the fear in the man's voice was so desperate that his own hair practically stood on end. A deep, bone-chilling dread washed over him. He hit the gas, fast enough to calm the passenger and himself, and pulled out onto the street. The pedestrian was left far behind. They drove in silence. Robert had a rule. If the passenger doesn't talk, neither does he. The man was trembling like a leaf, constantly running prayer beads through his fingers. Then Robert heard quiet muttering, too soft to make out the words. It sounded like either a prayer or some kind of chant. That's when Robert really started feeling uneasy. He kept glancing at the navigation, thinking how badly he wanted this ride to end. At an intersection, he stopped at a red light. The streets were empty, but still. Out of the corner of his eye, he noticed something. He turned his head and froze. About 60 feet ahead, walking slowly and confidently, was the same cloaked figure. This time, the fear hit Robert so hard that he pressed the gas without waiting for the green light. The passenger saw the pedestrian too, and started moving the beads even faster, muttering louder. "How did he get here?" Robert finally blurted out. "Even by car, that's impossible. Do you know him?" The passenger tried to answer, but he was shaking so badly that nothing understandable came out. Robert glanced at him and stopped asking questions. The man's face was ghostly pale, like all the blood had drained from it. His eyes looked like those of a trapped animal. The passenger wiped sweat from his forehead, glanced around nervously, and pleaded, "Please, if you can, Don't stop at traffic lights. Robert was usually strict about following the rules, but this time he didn't even consider arguing. He pushed the accelerator, slowing down only near speed cameras. Thankfully, the road was almost empty. Finally, they arrived. The destination turned out to be an administrative building, completely dark, no lights in the windows, clearly abandoned for the night. "You sure this is the place?" Robert asked. Yes, this one," the passenger stammered. He opened the door, looked around anxiously, shoved a large bill into Robert's hand without even checking the change, and ran toward the building. Robert didn't drive off right away. Curiosity got the better of him, and he decided to watch for a moment. The passenger reached a service entrance, glanced around fearfully, unlocked the door with a key, and slipped inside. A minute passed, but no lights came on in the building. "What am I doing?" Robert muttered and started the engine. He turned the car around and began to pull away, when suddenly he broke into a cold sweat. The hair on his head practically stood straight up. Right in front of his car stood the figure in the dark cloak. It was the same pedestrian with the cane. How could he possibly have covered the distance Robert had driven in 20 minutes? Robert slammed on the brakes. For a brief moment, the headlights illuminated the stranger's face, perfect features, a satisfied smirk, and his eyes. They were glowing red, not reflecting light like an animal's eyes. They burned as if lit from within. Terrified beyond reason, Robert swerved around him and sped onto the road. In the rearview mirror, he saw the stranger calmly twirling the cane from one hand to the other as he walked toward the building where the passenger had disappeared. That's when pure animal terror took over. Every instinct screamed, "Get out of here now!" And he did. He floored the gas so hard he nearly lost control. That night, he didn't take another fare. He drove straight home, drank every bottle of vodka he could find, and only then managed to fall asleep. The next morning, he heard the news. A massive fire had destroyed a warehouse complex and the adjacent administrative building. Robert didn't doubt it, but he checked the address anyway. It was the same one. He followed the reports, asked around, tried to find out what caused the fire. Nothing. Someone was blamed. The case was quietly closed. To this day, Robert can't explain what happened that night. It remains the strangest and most terrifying experience of his entire career. Many years have passed, but remembering that night still sends chills down his spine.